so that, because then people are going to be popping in until we get started. So once again, if you're just joining us, we haven't started yet. Just making a couple of announcements. Please keep yourself on mute. And if you're not speaking, it's going to be quite a number of people in this class today. I welcome your questions. If you want to ask a question, what you want to do is hit the participants button at the bottom of the screen there. Then the little window will pop up and you have the option to raise your hand. So just click raise hand and I'll be able to see that you're raising your hand. And if you open the chat right now, there's a link to a seed starting guide that I wrote to go along with this class. I'm giving that to all of our members for free this time. That's not something I normally do, but I'm just feeling very appreciative of all of you who are supporting us. So open up that guide if you will. What else do I need to say? I'm just going to repeat all of that one more time, and then we'll get started. I'm in my living room today. My wife has graciously allowed me to spread soil all over the floor, as long as I have this tarp. Oh, maybe I need to post the link again for new people. Okay, so a couple of administrative items again. While we're on the call, there's going to be a number of people here, so please keep yourself on mute if you're not speaking. That will really help me out. If you want to ask a question, you want to press the participants button at the bottom of the screen. Then in the little pop-up that comes up, you want to click raise hand. And if you raise your hand, I will see that you are raising your hand, and I will call on you when necessary. You can unmute yourself and ask your question. There is a link in the chat. I'm going to post that again because I think if you just joined, you won't see it. There's a link in the chat. I wrote a seed starting guide. I'm just putting it out there today for all of our members. We're very appreciative of your donations that are keeping our farm running. So thank you very much, and please enjoy the guide. It's going to have a lot of the material that we're going over today for you to review in there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm sure there'll be more people coming in, and if someone can help me, maybe repost that link and an explanation of what I just said in a couple of minutes for the new people in the chat, I would appreciate that. Okay, so there might be some of you who are new to these monthly classes. So I'm going to do a little bit of introduction to our organization and what we do, and then we will get into the lesson for today. Thank you for becoming a member of Sarvodaya Institute. We are a nonprofit organization based here in Los Angeles, California, and our farm is based in Pomona, which is on the eastern edge of LA County. We primarily just try to help people get started gardening because we feel it's a really just powerful way to engage with the world, to kind of find a healing space for yourself, grow healthy food for yourself and your family. And I have, many more philosophical reasons I could share with you that I garden, but I'll just stop there. And basically that's what we do. We promote gardening, growing food at home, planting trees, creating habitat for birds and butterflies, and all of that wonderful stuff. And at our farm, you can come for different farm experiences. You can come and visit our nursery. You can buy plants from us. We also have a lot of gardening supplies available at our nursery. And we do these monthly member lessons. So every month we choose a different topic. We try to stay pertinent to the season. So that might be a little bit different for you if you're not in California. We might be a little bit off for your season. but you're still going to benefit from these classes. You just might use the information at a different time of year. So, you know, if you're in an area where it just started snowing today, you might not be doing a lot of seed starting now, but you're going to be doing some seed starting later. Okay, few announcements just from our the nonprofit side of things. If you're in LA, we have a few new offerings at the farm. We were doing just tours and nursery visits before. We are now going to be offering private. We're partnering with some artists in the area in Pomona. So we're going to be offering private COVID-friendly art experiences on the farm that are going to change around every month. So this month is a succulent gardening workshop. You can book that through our website, and it's actually through my other project, Healing Gardens. So you can book a art experience for you, your family, or you know, anyone who's in your quarantine pod. We can take up eight people at a time. You can even just come as a couple, and it's about an hour and a half on the farm. You'll get a little tour and the succulent art experience. You can also come and book personal retreats on the farm now. So you can book 90 minutes to spend with yourself on the farm. So if you want to meditate or do yoga or just take a nap in a really beautiful space, you can now come and do that as well. So just if you're looking for a healing space to hang out, you can come do that on our farm. And again, you can book that through the website. Okay, before we get started, I'll just repeat one more time. The free seed starting guide is in the chat. I'm going to paste it one more time. Just open that link up. It has a lot of what we're going to be going over today. And then, oh yeah, okay. What I do normally to start off every day is I just every one of these classes I'd like to hear from a couple people, usually 2 or 3, and what you are excited to learn about in this class, or anything particular that you want to know about, just so I can kind of cater the experience to who's here. So if you want to introduce yourself and let me know what you're excited to learn, go ahead and raise your hand in that participants window. Okay, how about Rodolfo? I just see you raising your hand, so go ahead, Rodolfo. Unmute yourself. You got to unmute yourself first, Rodolfo. There's a little button there. I think I can do it for you too. Oh, there you go. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, my name is Rodolfo Brandes, and I retired in October last year from my business, automotive business. And I always was interested in growing my own veggies and plants. And now that I have more time, I'm trying to get as much time as I can to dedicate to this, which is a nice hobby. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you for sharing, Rodolfo. I think you just came by the nursery recently too, right?
Correct, yeah, I come and visit. I haven't met you, so my next visit will be to meet you, and maybe I bring my rest of my family.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing. All right, and now I see Adrian Kanolkar.
Hi. So I am not in California, but I'm in Indiana, and so a little bit different season. We're still getting some vegetables and stuff, and I don't know if anything would survive over the winter if we planted it, but definitely, like you said, interested in learning about seed starting for the spring. And also maybe if this class, or maybe a different time, if you're going to talk about seed saving, because I'm interested in that as well.
Okay, cool. Yeah, maybe we would do a class on that later. But yeah, thank you for sharing, and welcome. All right, and now finally we got Michael Tinsley.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm interested in this season, fall season, what to plant, and I'm particularly interested in, I'm really trying to work with my soil to get it better. and healthier soil. I've struggled with that. My plants are small and things like that. So hoping you can possibly talk about nurturing the soil a bit.
Okay, I can try to work some of that in there. That's a kind of a big topic and also a main topic for a lot of what we do.
Yeah.
So I'll see what I can work in today. But we also
Appreciate
have some other resources that I can point you toward.
Yeah, I'd like to come by the garden and check it out too. So cool.
All right, great. Thank you. Okay, great. Thank you for sharing. Love hearing from you guys. And we're going to have the way that this session is structured is the first half is my lesson, and the second half is a Q&A. So if you want to ask questions or just introduce yourself later, we'll have plenty of time for that. Okay, so I'm going to get started here. If you have the guide open, I want you to go to the last couple pages. It's Appendix B. Okay, the first thing I wanted just to go over is what is fall gardening and winter gardening about, and how does the garden change from the summer season, where we have a lot of warmth, to the fall and winter season where we really see that energy in the garden kind of fall. Okay, and that is, that's the name of the season, right? Fall. So we see that we're literally seeing the energy in the garden kind of come down and come closer to the ground, right? So if you had a spring and summer garden, what you probably saw was you put these, you started with these little seeds, or you started with these little seedlings, and by the end of the summer, you had these 6 or 8 or 10-foot long tomato vines, and 10-foot long bean vines, and 40-foot long pumpkin vines, and this kind of explosion of energy from the soil, with plants just like getting huge, putting out tons of fruit, lots of colors, lots of bright flavors, a lot of even the texture of the vegetables that we get in the summer tends to be like soft and juicy. And as we move into that fall season, right, we're going to see that all that energy that came out is now going to start to collapse back into the ground, right? And this is what, is it Timothy who just spoke? Forgetting the name, but this is one of the things that we want to make sure as we're transitioning from the summer garden to the fall garden, is that all that energy that exploded out of the garden collapses back into the garden, which means that all those tomato vines and all those pumpkin vines and all that green growth that's going to now shrivel up in the winter, we definitely don't want to pull that all out and throw it in the green bin, because that's all energy that is then leaving the garden. And so we want to make sure that all those plant bodies are returned to the soil, because fall and winter are really a time where all of that material gets reincorporated and fed back into the soil. And that's the closing of that cycle that's happening throughout the year, the explosion of energy in the summer and the return of the energy in the fall. So in fall, a lot of what we're going to grow is going to be these plants that are kind of hunkered down, right? We're not going to get the same 20-foot tall plants. What we are going to get are plants that kind of hug and stay close to the warmth of the earth, right? Because if they kind of go up too high, then they're going to get scorched by the cold. So the plants that do well in the winter are really the ones that are either growing in the earth, which is our root vegetables, or really just hugging the surface of the earth. So if you look through this planting guide, and this is for Southern California, so if you're in a different region, please ignore this and find something that is more appropriate for your area. If you're in if you're anywhere in California, then this is probably pretty good for you. But if you're outside of California, please find something more appropriate to your region. And there's plenty of these online. Just type in your state and planting guide, you'll probably find something. So you want to look to the month of September, October, and remember, these are estimates. This is not you don't just plant something because it's September. You are looking at the weather. And yes, this is getting increasingly more challenging every year as the weather gets more and more erratic. And also the dates for winter have, from what I've noticed, tended to get, or for fall planting, have tended to get pushed back. So I used to plant fall seeds in like August. Now I'm starting them about now. And even when we start them now, we might do, I know I don't expect you to do this at home, but for our farm, because we want to be a little bit more secure, we might do a planting now. We might do another planting in a month because we just don't know what the weather is going to be like. But generally what I want to do is just look at that kind of those fall months and look at the seeds that are the plants that are supposed to be started around that time. Okay, so what you're going to see things like beets, broccoli, cabbage, carrots, cauliflower, celery, collard greens, kale, you know, and if you just go down, Swiss chard, these are the plants that we're going to be growing during the fall season. Again, these are plants that they won't really get up off the ground. They'll tend to stay kind of close and hugging the ground. And then all the root vegetables, fall and winter is the time for root vegetables. And that's because they're growing in that energy that's been condensed into the earth. Okay. So the other thing you need to know, we're going to go over today how to start seeds in pots. The other important thing to know is that certain seeds are better to start directly in the ground, so directly in the gardening bed where you're going to be growing them. Certain seeds are better to start in a pot or a tray like this, so that you can kind of keep them protected for a little while and then move them out into the garden. So generally, for direct seeded, like things that we're going to plant directly into the ground, we're going to be planting things like basically all root vegetables. Root vegetables, you generally want to directly put the seed in the ground. The only one that I sometimes start in pots that's a root crop are beets. Beets are the only ones that really transplant okay. Do not try to start carrots or radishes in a pot like this or in a tray like this. So root vegetables, we start directly in the ground. The other thing we start directly in the ground are a lot of the leafy greens. So things like lettuce, arugula. Sometimes you can do bok choy if you really want to grow the bok choy tender and dense. You can grow that direct seeded in the ground. It just tends, for those kind of things, what I tend to do is just plant like a lot of seeds and plant those seeds almost like a carpet in the ground and just let them come up that way. And you know, if you lose even 1/3 or half of the seeds, you still have plenty of lettuce, you still have plenty of arugula, and they come up fairly easily. So everything else, things that we're going to plant in the trays, like today I have some bok choy seeds, I have some broccoli seeds, I have some cauliflower seeds, I have some cilantro seeds somewhere around me here. I have some cilantro. Cilantro is one of the ones where you can kind of do either. So it's these bigger, you know, where we're not just eating the leaves. That tends to be what I plant in the tray. Okay. So let's see, anything else I wanted to go over here? Yeah. Any questions so far? Janine.
So I tried to grow some carrots this summer, and they were I got one carrot that was 1 centimeter long and not even 1 millimeter wide. And I think what's been happening is I haven't had something in my soil that I needed to support root growth. That's my best guess, because things sprouted really fast and then they just sat there for weeks.
Okay, okay. Janina, I want to take that question at the end.
Sure.
That's a little bit more specific.
Okay. Sounds good.
If there's anyone who, if you have any questions specifically about, what we're starting in the fall and what we're starting from seed, what we're transplanting, I'll take those questions now. Okay, Rodolfo, I see you raising your hand. You got to unmute yourself first. All right, I'm going to let Colleen go first while you.
Maybe you're going to get to it, but I just wanted to know what you use for your potting mix or, potting soil, potting mix. Is it homemade? Is it stored? That's where I don't know what to use.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. That's the next thing I'm going to get.
Oh, okay.
We're going to do a little live demonstration here. Okay. All right.
Okay, I am muted already.
Okay. Go ahead, Rodolfo.
On the when you're starting those trays, do you have to start that inside the house? I bought a light and everything, but I have no idea. You do it outside or you do it inside the house?
Okay, I'm going to get to that just now. All right. So let's talk about starting the seeds.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so yeah, so when you're starting your seeds, you want to, if you do have the space, it's nice to have a little nursery area. And if you, in terms of a home nursery, this could be indoors if you don't have the outdoor space. So if you don't have the outdoor space, do it indoors. If you do have the outdoor space, definitely don't do it indoors. Okay, outdoor is going to be easier. And you'll get plants that are a little bit hardier. If you don't have outdoor space and you have to do it indoors, that's great. You can work that out too. So if you're doing indoors, if you have a sunny window, which is facing, well, if you have any sunny window, just go with the sunny window. Okay, you want to have your little area set up over there. You want to have probably at least 4 to 5 hours of sunlight wherever you're doing this. If you're doing it outdoors, preferably you want to have a east facing so that you're getting morning sun, and not west facing where you're getting afternoon sun. That's going to be a little more harsh. So preferably you want to get soft sunlight for your nursery. So that could be east facing. If it can't be east facing, you want to have maybe some shade cloth set up, or you want to do it under a tree that has kind of a light dappled shade. We don't want to do in the shade, but if we have like a light shade or a shade cloth, that's a great space to start your seedlings. You want to have access to some water. So, have a hose that reaches there. If you don't have a hose, you want to have a watering can. If you're doing it indoors, you want to have some kind of tray underneath your setup so that water is not going to spill everywhere and mess up your floor or your table. So these are things we have to think about, right? In terms of your containers, so I really like these types of trays. This is what we use at our nursery and what we use at our farm. These are called 1020 trays. You can buy these at most nurseries and hardware stores like this one. It just comes with this insert. So this is 2 pieces. Okay, you have a bottom tray. It's got holes in it. Okay, and then you have the top tray. And this one actually kind of breaks up into 4, which I don't want to do actually. So this has 72 little pots in it. And I like this. I like this even for home gardens because it's really easy just to get your whole garden started in this little 1 foot by 2 foot space, right? So you could have 6 lettuce, you could have 6 broccoli, 6 cabbage, 6 cauliflower, 6 cilantro, 6 beets, 6 kohlrabi, whatever. You can have all of that in one tray, and it makes your life really easy. You just have to worry about this one tray. And really, like, if you filled up this one tray with vegetable seedlings for the winter, that's probably enough for like 2 to 4 people, right? That's quite a lot of veggies for most American families. If you come from a culture that eats a lot more vegetables, maybe you need 2 or 3 of these trays. But really, this is quite a lot. And I like these. The other reason I like this versus, some of the biodegradable, like a lot of the nurseries sell these biodegradable pots, and those are great. I mean, I think people are kind of afraid of having to pop the plant out of this little pot, but really you don't need to be afraid. You can't. It's pretty hard to damage a plant that's been well grown out in here. You don't need to be super fearful. So that's why I like just using, I actually prefer the plastic ones because I can just reuse this, right? Like I can use this for a couple of years before it really starts to break up. And there are more professional quality ones that I am going to add into the guide, the ones that we use on our farm that will last, like ours have lasted for like 5 or 6 years. So if you can, it's a couple bucks. And, if you get a few of these, for a home gardener, really, you buy 2 or 3 of these, they're going to last you forever. And they come in different sizes. Like this is a 72 cell. So there's 72 little pots in here. There's also a 50 cell. So the pots are a little bit bigger. There's only 50 of them. So I really like these. You can also just use 6 packs from a nursery. You can use leftover pots. You can use, you can really use anything. It doesn't matter a whole lot. The only reason I like this is because of the convenience that all of these plants fit in here, and it's easy for me to watch and take care of. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to say about that. Just make sure that this tray that I bought here, it came actually without holes. I poked holes in it. I don't know why the hell they would sell this tray without holes in it. If you water into a container that has no holes, the water is never going to drain out, and then your plants are literally just going to rot in here. So you need to have drainage. You should always have holes. Okay? All right. Anything else I want to say about pots? I think that's it. Okay, so I'm going to move on. Okay, Rodolfo, you have a question?
Yes, a quick one too. I know there's a company, I don't know if I can mention the name, that you can buy the tray and they sell you the little cubes of the soil, and it has a felt underneath. That's better to do it that way, or I mean, the way you're saying?
There's all sorts of ways. There's, like these little peat discs that you can buy that expand. There's soil blocking. There's many, many different ways. This is my preferred method. Okay, just a regular pot is my preferred method.
Okay.
Some of the pots that I saw in the store, the biodegradable ones, they're like coconut coir, and I doubt that pot is going to decompose fast enough once you put it in the ground. So I wouldn't want, I purposely don't use those.
Thank you.
Laurel, you got a question?
Yeah, this was just circling back to the what to plant in the fall. We had some questions about things like fennel and garlic. What are your thoughts about those things?
Yeah, fennel is definitely a fall. Garlic is a root vegetable, or I don't know if it's a vegetable or what you would call it. Garlic and onions. So you start garlic, you can literally just buy garlic, like organic garlic from the grocery store, break up the cloves, stick 1 clove in the ground every foot apart. And that's how you start garlic. Garlic needs, for Southern California, garlic needs to go in around November. Okay. And then it harvests. It's a long season. Garlic plants in like October, November, and you don't harvest it till like May. Okay. So if you have a small garden, I wouldn't recommend you planting garlic. If you have a big garden, you can do garlic. Onions, kind of similar. You can either buy seeds right now and start seeds right now. Some online nurseries, like there's one called Peaceful Valley, groworganic.com. You can buy little onion starts, so they look like you're buying scallions. They'll come in like a bundle, and you just stick those scallions in the ground around November, and then around like April, May, you'll harvest onions. So again, it's a long season crop. If you have a small garden, I don't recommend it. Fennel is fine. Fennel is like 3 months to harvest.
And fennel, would you start the seed in the nursery, or would you do it direct into the ground?
I would start it in the pots.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. There's a question about tomatoes. No tomatoes in winter. Tomatoes are those high energy crops. We're not doing no tomatoes, no peppers, no eggplant, no squash. One common mistake, winter squash. Winter squash does not get planted in winter. Winter squash gets planted in spring and harvested in winter. Okay, winter squash harvested in winter. Pumpkins are harvested in fall, winter. All right, okay. All right, so let's move on here. We're gonna do my soil mix. If you were with us for last month's container gardening class, this mix is almost the same as the container gardening mix. Okay, so let me see here. Where can you see me from? All right, that's a little bit too low. Okay, a couple different ingredients. You won't be able to see my face, but I think that's okay. These are in the guide that I linked to. So you don't need to write this down, it's all there for you. So first ingredient is compost. Okay. What I've done here is I bought this little screen. Okay, this is a 1/4 inch mesh screen. I found this. They sell this for, it's a foundation vent. This is called a foundation vent at the hardware store. The 1/4 inch screen already came with the wood right on it. So you get this at the hardware store. It was a couple bucks. All right. So I got my compost, and I'm using, there's 3 ingredients that I have in equal proportions, so they're all in these little bags. What I want to do with my compost is I want to sift it down. I want to take out any large chunky materials that are going to kind of take up space in the pot, or maybe even smother a seed that's trying to come up. Like if there's a big chunky piece of wood in your compost, we want to get those out. So we want to have everything in our potting soil be really, really fine. Okay. Compost is going to be one of the major ingredients. Why? Because this is food, right? This is food for plants' roots. And so we need to have food. So compost is a major ingredient here. And so what I do is just take some of the compost and I sift it and get rid of the chunky stuff. Take some more compost, sift it. This is exactly what we do for vegetable seedlings in our nursery. And if you follow this mix that I'm giving you, you're probably going to have like 95% of your seeds come up. It works really, really well. Oh, one thing I didn't mention yet, which is really important. If you can, make your potting soil mix. Okay, can you see me? Make your potting soil mix 1 month before you want to plant. Okay, we're going to let this kind of cure. If you can't do that, if you got a little bit late, it's fine. But if you can, do this a month ahead, okay, or even a couple weeks ahead. We're going to mix all this stuff together. We want to let it like kind of cook or ferment. Okay, so I'm going to give you the instructions for that. But first, we're sifting our compost. And I already sifted most of it, so just do this a couple more times. Whatever you're sifting out, you can add it back to your compost pile, or you can just put that as mulch in a bed or in your pots. Okay, so here we go. Now we have this like really fine sifted compost. Okay, so we're going to be, especially winter seeds, they tend to be really small and fine. So we want to have all these really fine materials. Okay, so here's our 1/4 inch screen sifted compost. And compost is providing nutrients. It's also going to have some, you know, if it's from the store, there's probably not a lot of microbes in here because it's been sitting in a plastic bag out in the sun. It's gotten cooked a bit. But we're going to add some other stuff to kind of take care of that. All right, next ingredient is perlite. Probably noticed this, or you know what this is from pots that you've bought from the nursery.
Marishi, just to let you know that the focus is a little bit off now.
Okay, thank you for that. I think that's better now, right?
Yeah, you got it.
All right, thank you. The wonders of technology. Okay, so the next ingredient is perlite. It's these little white rocks that you see in plants that you buy from nurseries. This is an ingredient that's primarily for drainage. So this will keep the soil from getting too wet. It also actually has these little pores that will hold some moisture. So it keeps some moisture in and it lets the excess go. We're going to add an equal amount of this perlite into our mix. Okay, so I got one bag. And then my last big ingredient is the coconut fiber. Okay, you buy this stuff at, they have it at most nurseries now, and they have them at hydroponic supply companies as well. This is basically ground up coconut shell. Okay, it's the mature coconut shell ground up. This stuff kind of keeps the soil in the potting soil from getting compacted. Every time we water the soil, there's going to be a kind of a force pushing the soil down, and the coconut fiber, it doesn't compress. It's like a sponge. It bounces back. So this is going to prevent our soil from compacting. Okay. So again, equal parts. Oh my! I overestimated how big this container was, or I underestimated. Okay. So now we're going to mix. You know, you can do this with a shovel. You can do this with your hands. You can put it in a bin and just kick the bin around. And one thing I'm not going to do, because I'm inside, is I'm not going to wet it down. But normally you want to wet this down. You want to be adding some water as you're mixing it. You do not want this to get soaking wet. What you do want is to get it kind of moist. And it should have this kind of just nice feel to it. And if you were to pick up a handful and squeeze, you should not see like water pouring out when you squeeze it. You should see a little bit of water kind of drip out. That is the right moisture level. Okay, so I wanted to mix it a little bit before I added the last couple ingredients. And yes, I'm spilling all over the place, but that is why I have a tarp. Okay, so these are my bulk ingredients. The last couple ingredients I want to add. So you want to add something that is going to be high in microbial life. Okay, so microbes, bacteria, fungi, etc. These are really important to plant health, to soil health. They're kind of the foundation of soil health. And what we have here in our mix so far is we have a bunch of food for microbes. And what we don't have in the mix so far are too many microbes. So we actually have to have an ingredient in our mix that's going to introduce microbes into the mix. And then those microbes are going to expand into the whole mix by eating everything that we've thrown in here. So this is just like making yogurt, just like making kombucha, making sourdough bread. We start with a little bit of culture, and then we add it to the bigger kind of vat of food, and then we let things this is why I said do this a month early. We're going to in that month, we're going to let the microbes eat up everything, kind of the whole texture, color, smell of this is going to change in that month as the microbes eat everything up, it'll look much more homogeneous. The color will darken. You'll get this much more rich smell. Okay, so I have what can you use for a soil inoculant? I'm using today worm compost. So let me show you some of my worms here. You can see them kind of squirming around up there. Okay, so I'm using just a little bit of worm compost. You can use worm compost from a friend. You can use homemade compost if you have really well-made homemade compost. You can use just soil from a garden that's been maintained well and has rich, healthy soil. You can use soil from a garden. You can find a tree that has like a thick layer of leaves underneath it and just grab a handful of soil from under there. Just something that's going to be, it should have that, when you smell it, you should smell this kind of fungusy, mushroom, forest-rich smell. That's the sensory indication that what you're looking at is rich in microbes. Okay, so something like that, and we just need a little bit, right? Like we had this much compost, I have this much soil inoculant. And the last ingredient, because the compost that we're using, if we're using a store-bought compost, it's probably not that rich. I'm going to use this Happy Frog tomato and vegetable organic fertilizer. We're going to need a little bit something stronger to keep the plants fed over the next couple of weeks. So something like this. I'm going to put just like half a cup of this in here. I'm not a measuring person. And you can't really overdo this, so it's not a huge risk if you put too much. And now we're going to come back to mixing. And again, if I was doing this outside, I would be moistening it down. Or even if I was, I guess if you're doing it inside, you still need to moisten it down, but you need to be prepared to do that, and I'm not prepared to do that. Okay, any questions while I'm doing this? Do you set the mixture out? Okay, so where do you let the soil mixture sit? That's very important. You want to have the mixture sitting you want it in a sealed container, like a Rubbermaid tote or some of these black and yellow totes you see everywhere now. Sealed container. After you've moistened it down, you put holes in the bottom of the container so that any extra moisture can drain out. You put it in a shady place, as shady as you can find. Okay, you don't want it in the heat. I want it in the cool. All right. Chevy, you have a question.
Yes. Hi. What do you think about biochar? Do you ever put that in the original soil mix?
I've heard many great things about biochar. For some reason, I've never really used it. If you want, I know a lot of people add it to their potting mix. If you want to add it, what I would do is I would just cut some of the perlite and replace it with biochar because it's going to function fairly similarly.
Okay. And one more question. Is there any other substitute for the store-bought fertilizer that we could use?
Yeah. If you're making compost on your own, you can just use, then you don't need the fertilizer so much. It's really if you're buying compost in a bag,
okay,
it's not super rich stuff. So if you're making it at home, you don't need it. The other thing you could do is when you're letting this cure, this is actually a good idea. Just throw some food scraps, fresh food scraps, right in here. And in that month, those food scraps will decompose. You could even get some fish guts from the butcher. You could get animal organs from the butcher. Make sure your container is sealed so no animals are going to get in here. Just get some, some rich stuff, some blood, something animal-based. Or if you want to do if you're not wanting to go that far, you could grind up some seeds. That's what a lot of this stuff is. If you look at the ingredients here, you'll find stuff like, okay, alfalfa meal, that's alfalfa seed meal. There'll be corn seed meal, cottonseed meal, corn seed meals, coconut meal, like any seed. Seeds are very high in energy, plant energy, soil energy. So if you want to just put a seed, like ground up seeds, so you could put, chickpea flour or something like that, mung bean flour. That's basically what this stuff is. Does that make sense? I mean, if you look at what's in here, right? Alfalfa meal, feather meal, fish bone meal, fish meal, kelp meal. Okay, if you don't want to buy it in the bag, find a whole version of it. Get some animal guts, fish guts, seaweed, throw it in the container and let it decompose over that month. Or just your food scraps. Just your food scraps work too. Any other questions?
One more I have. Would you put in compost tea at this point?
You could. I don't do a lot of compost tea. You're adding the inoculant anyways, and you got the food here, and you're going to give it a month. So compost tea will, maybe boost the growth of the microbes a bit. But if you're going to give it a month anyways, I wouldn't worry about it. Just extra work. Janine?
I'm trying to remember what I was going to ask you. Oh, I know. So I more or less did what you just said earlier this summer, not for so long, but I didn't have holes in the bottom of my thing. And then when I opened up the Rubbermaid, there was like a little fuzzy whitish on top. And I was like, is this good or is this scary? So I wasn't sure. I just kind of mixed it all up and it seemed fine. And then I didn't worry about it anymore. But I thought, maybe don't leave the top on. I had it in a shed. So can you fill me in on what I've done since then? Is not I've done the 3 parts and not added the other part until I was ready to plant because I wasn't sure what was going on there. So
you're actually seeing something that's you're seeing a good sign. What's happening is if you added something like this, or if you put anything else that's like a heavy nutrient. Okay, what's happening is that fungi from your soil inoculant, fungi that are in here, they are eating up those nutrients. And so what you're seeing is mycelial growth, and it tends to, for some reason, it tends to happen on the surface of the container.
Okay.
So it's actually great. So put the lid on again, mix everything in the beginning, leave it for a month. You should see that white fungal growth on the top. That's a good sign.
Okay, and then is that a good idea when you're going to use it for planting to mix it in, the mycelial growth?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can mix it in.
And now you were saying to put holes in the bottom, and what I would just tend to do is just put my bin with the holes in the bottom in my shed. So then I'm definitely not going to have any critters to deal with.
Right.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
The holes in the bottom, it's more of a fail-proof thing for people who are new here. I'd rather have the excess moisture drain off if it needs to. So when I do it, I don't really check whether my container has holes or not. I just make sure I don't over moisten. But since we have new people, holes in the bottom, let extra moisture drain off.
Okay.
One thing I want to just mention here, like if you go to a nursery or a garden supply store and you buy a seed starting mix, if you look on the label, what you'll read on there is that it'll say sterile seed starting mix, meaning that the mix that they created, they baked it, okay? And then they gave it to you. They killed off all the microbes, then they gave it to you, and that's what they want you to use. We are purposely doing a non-sterile, the opposite of sterile mix. We're trying to create a high microbe, nutrient-dense mix. And so it's a different approach, right? Instead of trying to avoid, fungi that might kill off your seedlings by sterilizing everything, we're trying to introduce a lot of beneficial microbes that are going to boost plant growth and in 99% of cases, overcome any fungi that might cause your seedlings to die. So you'll get, and you'll also see, if you do a side-by-side comparison, seeds that you start in this mix, you'll look at the days to germination on these packets, and they'll say, 7 to 14 days for broccoli. My broccoli usually comes up in 3 days. You're going to see extremely speeded plant germination, usually half the time that's listed on the packet, because all of these days to germination are based off of sterile mixes. When you move to a biologically active mix, your germination increases, your days to maturity lessens. Most people are just stuck in some very old, strange ways. So we're not going to do that. Okay, so I made my mix here, and we want to just walk you through putting it into the pot and what happens after. We are going to go a little bit longer than an hour so I could get some of your questions again. I have trouble keeping it to my time limit. Sorry. I found the cilantro seeds and I'm covered in soil. Okay, so I got my tray. I'm going to fill it up. I'm not really gentle about this. There's no need to be. Usually I have something underneath me that's going to catch all the excess. Your soil mix, if you left it for a month, it's going to look a lot different than what mine looks like right now. It's going to feel really soft. It's going to feel like you're reaching your hand into like chocolate cake. It's going to feel very delicious. Okay, so I fill it up. And then what I do is I drop it 1, 2, 3 times. I want the soil to kind of settle in so that the pot is filled up as much as it can be without getting compressed. So I don't want to like push the soil down. Just with gravity, I want to just kind of collapse it. And it's going to collapse a little bit further even when you water it. So I'm going to fill it up basically to the top here on my second go over. Okay, so I'm not going to leave much of a gap on the surface, but when I water it, then there'll be a little bit of a lip so that the water is not spilling over. Okay, so now we look at our seed packets. Okay, so I'm going to start with broccoli, the Chico. Okay, so I'm going to open my seed. I'm going to look at my seed packet. On the back, it says seed planting depth. Okay, that's actually quite important. You can pretty much ignore everything else on this packet but the seed planting depth. So it says 1/8 of an inch. Usually broccoli is actually 1/4 inch, but okay. So 1/8 of an inch. So usually seed planting depths, they're either 1/8 of an inch or 1/16 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 1 inch. Bigger seeds usually get planted deeper, not always. Smaller seeds usually get planted more shallow. So actually things like lettuce, they pretty much need to be on the surface. You don't want to really put them into the soil at all. They should just be right on the surface. Broccoli, 1/8 of an inch. So, you can make a little stick if you want that has different depths on it, and you can make little holes in your pot with a stick. I just do it, I describe it in a different way. So if it's a 1/16 of an inch, then I want you to just press the surface of the soil like a whisper, just a whisper. It's a whisper press. That's a 1/16 of an inch. If it's an 1/8 of an inch, then you want to see a little divot, just barely. If it's a 1/4 inch, I want to press kind of firmly. If it's a 1/2 inch, you can kind of tell what a 1/2 inch is. You really want to press it in there a bit. And that's how I do it. Okay, so you go from a whisper of a press to like a full press. So broccoli, it says 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to do these kind of somewhat firm presses into the surface here. And I'm going to do 2 of broccoli. All right, don't reach your dirty hand into the seed packet. You'll ruin the rest of your seeds. Pour some seeds out into one hand and then put into the little pockets that you made. So I usually do, if I want one plant in here, I will put 2 to 3 seeds. Okay. There's a saying in, I think, a lot of older cultures, it's like 1 for me, 1 for the birds, 1 for the soil. So 3 seeds. Okay, so I'm put 3 in every divot. 1, 2, 3. If you put more than 3, don't freak out. It's just fine. If you put less than 3, don't freak out. Add another one. It's okay. It's all okay. Nothing's gonna happen here. Okay, almost done. Just like that. Okay, and hopefully you don't have too many seeds left. As long as they feel dry and clean, you can put them back in the packet. If they're gotten all wet and soily, then leave them out to dry before you put them back in the packet. Okay. So then the last thing you want to do is just come back with a little bit of soil and cover over. Okay, so here you do want to make sure that you're filling up that hole and the seed is not left exposed. You do not need to make a mountain where you planted the seed, just enough to cover it back up. And the last step would be to make sure you label. So, you know, you can use all sorts of things. One thing I would recommend that you all get, I have it in my store, farmerrishi.com, and I haven't added it to the guide yet, but I'll put it in there now or after the class, is there's a marker called a garden marker. It sounds really stupid. It's probably one of the best things I've ever found for gardening. It's just a marker, permanent marker that doesn't fade in the sun. If you use a Sharpie, after 30 days, you won't know what the hell you planted where. So if you use the garden marker, that marker is going to last, like even 2 years, the ink does not fade. So really handy. It's like $5. I recommend everyone get a garden marker if you're going to be starting your seeds, especially outdoors. The sun will just bleach anything. So you planted your seeds, you labeled it. Now you want to water, all right? I want you to, if you have a hose, you need to have a nozzle, okay? Don't use a hose without a nozzle. If you have a nozzle that has a mist setting, I want you to forget that the mist setting exists. Please do not use the mist setting to water your seedlings. We had volunteers come to the farm all the time and they immediately go to the mist setting. I don't know what it is. They don't need to be misted. The soil does need to be wet, moistened. The misting will not do it. So you want to use kind of a rain type setting, but it does need to be gentle. Okay, so your nozzle should have, you want like a low pressure on a rain setting. When you're watering, I don't want you to do this. You know, 10 seconds here, 10 seconds here, 10 seconds here, 10 seconds here. If you sit with your watering nozzle over any part of this thing, the soil is all going to just flush out of here. Your seeds are going to get flushed out of here. You got nothing to grow. So you need to go back and forth, slow, like back and forth, so that water's coming in here, it can soak in, and you know, now you're over here, it can soak in, and you're going back and forth. Always want to go back and forth. Don't sit over the seedlings. It'll wash everything out. If you're doing a lot of this, there is a watering nozzle I recommend. It's called the Wonder Waterer. It's in your guide. You can buy it from me on farmerrishi.com. You can buy it in our nursery too. That thing, you put it on the highest pressure setting. It's still just a very nice, gentle rain. It's what we use in our nursery. It's really it is the Wonder Waterer. I like it a lot. So if you're doing more than, a couple trays, that might be a good investment for you. So what to do in terms of watering. We need to keep that soil surface where the seed is moist, right? This is not like watering a tree where we can water it every month or every couple weeks. We need to really keep the surface moist. We never want to keep soil wet continuously. We want to keep soil moist. Okay, so that means I don't want you watering 4 times a day. I do want you to pay attention to whether that surface is moist and water enough so that you keep the surface moist with a little bit of drying out in between. So, if it's really hot like it is right now, like, it's 100 degrees out, you might be watering twice a day if it's that hot. If it's less than that, you're probably watering once a day. If it's in the fall or the winter, you're starting seedlings in a colder season, then you probably are watering every other day, every 3 days. I'm going to say this 1,000 times over the course of these monthly lessons. I cannot tell you when to water. You need to develop a sense of it. You need to know, you need to feel the soil and figure out when is it moist and when is it dry. And when it's dry, I want you to moisten it. And when it's moist, I don't want you to wet it. I want you to let it dry and then moisten it again. Does that make sense? Okay, so you're gonna keep it moist. The seeds are gonna come up probably in a couple days. Usually like 4 or 5 days, you'll start seeing seedlings come up. You're gonna keep watering just as before. As the seedlings get bigger, you can kind of space the watering out a little bit more because you're just trying to water enough so that now as the plant's roots get deeper, then they don't need to be watered so often. If you're gonna, I do recommend doing some kind of foliar spray of a liquid fertilizer. I forgot to bring it out here, but I just have a little spray bottle and I have like a fish and seaweed based liquid fertilizer that I'll spray onto my seedlings every week. We have pretty limited amount of soil in here, and as the plants grow, they will kind of run out of nutrition. So having a liquid, some kind of liquid that you can spray easily on the leaves and on the soil will keep your plants growing healthily until they're ready to transplant. And how do you know when the plants are ready to transplant? So one thing is size. I usually look for like 2 to 3 inches, above the soil. A couple sets of leaves, maybe like, 6, 7 leaves is a good kind of average. And then the other thing you want to do is just lift this up and peek and see if you can see roots coming out of the bottom. If you can see roots coming out of the bottom, then that's a pretty good indication that the plant is ready to go out into your garden. Okay, so you just want to pop it out, and I'm not going to talk about transplanting today actually, but that's what you want to look for. Okay, I think I'm done with what I wanted to talk about, so we'll just do questions now, and I'm happy to answer anything. All right. Go ahead.
I was asking about the roots, and I did, for the next time I'm planting, I did get this granular root zone mycorrhizae fungi with beneficial bacteria, OMRI. It's got a ton of different types of things in it. So I had done more or less what you just showed there, and for some reason my plants, just the roots did not do their job.
So did you start carrots in a pot?
Well, I grew carrots in a pot, in a pot. They were supposed to be short carrots, but
And when did you start them?
I don't know, 3 months ago or something.
Okay, this it's probably just it's the wrong season for carrots. You know,
Okay, but
carrots-
some of my greens also same thing, and I don't know if I had too many seeds together for the roots to have the space.
Yeah, that's definitely possible. If
Okay.
like carrots need to be, you know, each carrot will be about 2 inches apart so that the roots
Yeah,
can, if they're
that
all
would
clumped together, then they're not going to make they're going to have really thin roots.
that wasn't carrots, but that was like my miner's lettuce and things like that. I just, I had it was almost like a carpet, so probably just, maybe that was an issue.
Yeah, so okay, something like that. Like let's say lettuce, right? If you're going to grow lettuce like a carpet, you plant the seeds really densely. What you'll get is all these plants coming up really close together and they'll just go straight up. And a lot of the plant won't get sunlight because it's such carpet that just the tops of the plants are getting sunlight. So what you end up with is you get like lettuce that has this nice green tops and the whole body of the lettuce is almost light green or white and very tender. Okay, so that is one way of growing lettuce. If you want like a really tender lettuce, then you can grow, or any plant, any green, you want it really tender and soft, grow it dense. Then that part that doesn't get sunlight will be very soft and sweet. If you want, hardier, thicker leaves with more flavor, then you spread the lettuce, one lettuce here, then you get a full head of lettuce. So it's not like you're doing something wrong. It's just different ways of growing it. So if you had your miner's lettuce all bunched together, then you probably, if you just cut the whole thing like a carpet, then you'll get this very soft, tender miner's lettuce. And that's,
Yeah, the reason I think that, I mean, at first I was like, hey, this is great. But then, that was in the first few weeks, but then it just never grew. I mean, it was 1 inch high from weeks and weeks.
okay, that I don't know. I can't troubleshoot that exactly right now, but
Okay.
Yeah. But
Thank
good question. Thank you. I see Chevy's got the hand raised.
Yeah, quick question. 2 things. One, for your foliar, you said fish emulsion, and one more thing. Could I use just like compost?
Yeah. Yeah, you could use a compost tea for that. You could again make your own. Like for any of these things, I'm recommending certain products for people who are new and it's a little bit easier to start out this way. You can make any of this stuff on your own. So, what's fish emulsion or hydrolyzed fish? Like they literally just put fish in water with a little bit of salt. They let it rot for a while and then they blend it up. Like if you want to do that, you can do that. If you want to just add some more of like you can make a compost tea. You can powder up some more seeds and put it on the soil surface and that'll be a fertilizer. There's nutrients all around us. There's food for soil all around us. So we don't have to buy anything. I'm just making some recommendations that might be easier for people who are new to this.
Okay, so I just wanted to be clear. You said fish emulsion. Was there another thing you put in your foliar that I?
Oh, the one that we use is a mixture of fish and seaweed.
Seaweed. Okay, one more thing. The MIDI sifting frame. Great idea. Tell me again what I'm looking for when I go to the hardware store.
So it's basically, if your house has a raised foundation, it always has these vents underneath. So this is a cover for that vent. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Cover for
Foundation vent cover. That's what it says.
Thank you.
All right, Mercedes.
Thank you. I'm making a transition. I'm a super East Coast gardener.
Okay.
So, like the motivation for starting seeds like this there is that you're gaming the frost date. What does it do for you here in California? Because I'm so apt to just want to direct sow everything.
Well, for a lot of seeds, I find that, if you put them in the ground, birds will come and eat them, or caterpillars, butterflies will come and lay their eggs on them, and they're in the ground. You don't really know where you've planted them. I find that for us at our farm, it really helps us just to know, okay, here the seeds are, and we can pay attention to them. Here's 100 feet of garden space planted right here, and we can pay attention and watch everything and feed everything easily. So that's one part of it. For our farm, the other thing we do is we will start a set of plants while something is still growing in the field. So let's say we have 30 more days left on our broccoli planting. So I'm going to start the next planting in here. So as soon as the broccoli planting comes out, I can go in with the lettuce planting.
That makes sense. Thank you.
It can be like a one-day switch.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm going to get some of these questions in the chat here first. Do you ever soak seeds before planting? Sometimes we'll do that with bigger seeds like beans or corn. If you have a good soil mix and you're watering regularly, it doesn't help that much. You're basically soaking the seeds when you put them in the soil. So there's not a huge, I tend to not do a lot of the fancy stuff. Like I tend to just make sure that my fundamentals are solid, and I don't do a lot of the tricks. How do you store your seeds? Is a refrigerator an option? Yeah, you can put them in the refrigerator. You just want to put them in a container in the refrigerator, because if they get moist from the refrigerator, they won't store well. And thinning. Okay, that's a good question. Thinning. So I planted 3 seeds in here. If all 3 of them come up, then usually I will thin. So that means I'll pick the one that looks the healthiest and I will cut the other 2 off. So if you're doing something like broccoli, this can be actually, or cauliflower, this can be really important, because if you have 3 broccolis growing together, they will all grow just fine, but then you'll get 3 small heads instead of like 1 big head. So thinning, it can actually be important for certain plants. For other plants, it doesn't matter. Like cilantro, if you put, cilantro, I might plant like 10 seeds in 1 pot. And since they're growing nice and tight together, they'll grow up tall and get more tender, which is actually kind of nice. So it really depends on the seed, and you'll kind of learn these things as you go along and as you experiment. There's no definitive answers here. Okay. I'd prefer it if you guys ask questions, then I can see your face and hear your voice. So if you want to ask a question, please raise your hand. I'll go to the chat. Rodolfo, go ahead.
Yes. Where you can buy compost in the San Fernando Valley? I know you sell it, but it's kind of a trip for me from here to your place,
Okay, yeah. Compost you can buy at pretty much any nursery, any gardening center. They all sell compost. There's like fancy compost that you can get, that are $14 a bag. And there's non-fancy compost that are $7 a bag, $8 a bag. I tend to buy the non-fancy ones. And because what we're doing when we're making our potting soil and doing all this is we're taking the non-fancy compost and we're making it a fancy compost. And plus, like paying $14 or $15 a bag for compost that's been sitting out in the sun baking in a plastic bag, like I don't think I'm really getting much extra by paying that extra money. So I'd really rather buy the cheaper stuff. I don't think there's too much of a difference in quality, actually. So when you're buying compost, the only, there could just be one ingredient, and that ingredient is called recycled forest product. That just means that compost was made out of wood and leaves. Usually it's made locally to your area out of like tree trimmings from your region. So it's a local material. And that's why actually I I'm okay with buying bag compost and using it. I think it's a great resource. And if you use it the right way, it can really do wonders for your garden.
So if I'm gonna do a couple of raised beds on my garden because I wanna do some direct sowing, then I do basically the mix, exactly like almost like the one that you recommend, right? The compost, the harvest kelp, and all those other ingredients, and the perlite, same thing.
Making a raised bed soil is a little bit different. We have a raised bed gardening guide, or I have a raised bed gardening guide on my website that will give you the mix for that. It's slightly different than potting soil. So it's pretty similar, but there's a bit of a change there.
Oh, okay. So I can get it from the website, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, any other questions? Please raise your hand. I'd love to see your face or hear your voice. Anyone?
Hi, Farmer Rishi. Can you hear me? It's Laura.
Hi, Laura. Yeah, I can hear you.
Sorry, I have you on Zoom through my phone, so I couldn't find the raise hand.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes. So for the perlite, can I use pumice? Is that
Yeah.
possible? And
Yeah,
do they sell that?
Yeah, that's a pretty equal substitution. It's a little harder to find. You can usually find it at a landscape supply company, but regular nurseries don't usually sell pumice.
Got it. Okay. And also for the seeds, to store the seeds, you mentioned in the refrigerator. I didn't really understand the way you stored them in the refrigerator, and what's the difference between that and just having them like out here?
Okay, so for seed storage, the rule is cool, dark, and dry. Okay, so a refrigerator is cool and dark. It's not necessarily dry. If you leave a paper packet in the refrigerator, it'll probably get moist at some point. Moist is not, you don't want it to get moist. So if you want to store it in the fridge, put the seed packet in a sealed container, like one of those locking lid type containers. That'll keep the packet dry while it's in the fridge. If you keep it in the fridge, it'll last, you'll extend the life of your seeds quite a bit by, several years. If you keep seeds out in a cool, dark, dry place, they will last for about 2 to 3 years, most of them. Some seeds just last a long time. Like, I think amaranth seeds can last like 10 years. So each seed has its own lifespan. Every single seed has a different lifespan. I think that's on. That answers the question, right?
Yes, thank you. I do have another question. So I have a guava tree that I actually bought from your nursery, and I haven't transplanted it. I still have it in the fabric pot that I bought it in, and I actually there was a time where I wasn't really paying attention to it. I would only go out at night. So one day I came out during the day and I saw that it had little white flies, like really tiny, like all over the leaves. Okay. Do you know what exactly that might be and how I can help the tree?
I would need to see a picture to know for sure. There is something called white fly, but there are also other things that are small and white and fly. So I need to see a picture for sure. And
yeah, it's on the bottom of the leaf, not at the top. It's hiding at the bottom. And yeah, they look like little white flies, and they like laid their eggs.
And they're kind of jumping around.
Yes, but you have to look really close to notice that they're little white flies.
All right, so the first thing you want to try is just mixing some soap and water like Dr. Bronner's soap or some kind of plant-based soap, and just washing everything off, or you can squish the eggs with your hand. So first stop is always some kind of manual removal. And if that doesn't work, you can come back and try something else, like a neem, something that will actually kill them, like neem oil or something like that.
Got it. Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Mina.
Hi, Rishi.
Hi, how are you?
This class, I'm well, thank you. I had a question about, I made that mistake you said with the winter squash. Do you think I should still, the seedlings are doing amazing, but I don't know if I should now plant them in my garden or do not grow them.
Yeah, not the time to grow winter squash. How big are they?
The seedling?
Yeah.
There's about maybe 4 to 5 plant leaves on them.
Okay. You can eat the young leaves.
Oh.
You make a
okay.
nice soup. You kind of you take the young leaves off, you roll them up in your hand to take the spines off, and then you throw them in the soup.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, a common mistake, no worries. Winter squash, don't plant in winter. Plant. It's actually a very long season crop, so you start early, you start usually April, and then you harvest. It takes about 6 months. You harvest in October. That's the concept.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, anyone else want to read? Yeah, Armando.
Hey, hello. If I basically have room for one, 30-gallon grow bag.
Okay.
On my balcony. That's just sort of what I was thinking about doing, and I have a table that I can sort of put it on. Are there any, I know at the very beginning you said for most of these things you'd recommend using the method that you just described, starting in the grow bag.
Yeah, your audio just cut down. Sounds like your mic is covering.
I don't know. What about now?
Yeah, now it's good.
Okay. I was just wondering if there are any of the seedlings that were on your list that you would recommend just starting in that grow bag, just without the plastic container.
Yeah. Okay. You could do some. Let's see what would be good right now. So if you only have one container, right, I would recommend you do something that's easy to use in a lot of different situations. So leafy greens are really great for that. And so in the winter, you could direct seed lettuce, you could direct seed kale, you could direct seed Swiss chard. You could even broccoli and cabbage. If everything you're doing is just right in there, then it'll be really easy to, if you get a broccoli or I wouldn't do, cauliflower is like cauliflower and cabbage, you grow them, you get one cauliflower, one cabbage, and it's like a big space. Okay, so I would recommend you do a broccoli because a broccoli, you get the main head, but then it keeps making these smaller heads. So that'll be something maybe interesting for you to grow. But leafy greens, broccoli is a nice one for a small garden in the winter. And you can definitely throw some herbs in there. Herbs I wouldn't really do from seed. If you want to go get a thyme or oregano from a nursery, that's a much easier way to do those.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. That's what I wanted to know. And then regarding the materials for all of this, if I wanted to come check out your farm anyway, do you have many of these things that I could just pick up there?
We have everything to make the potting mix at the farm. We have all the herbs, seedlings. So yeah, you can come by. And we have pots. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, now everyone's raising their hand. All right, Angel.
Unmuted. Okay, perfect. Hi,
Yeah.
nice to meet you. I'm wondering, so you put some worms directly into your mix. Where's the best place to source those?
Worms, the easiest place to find worms is from someone who has worms. Because there's a lot of people worm composting all over. I believe Walmart also sells them in the fishing department. Because they make good bait, red wiglet worms. You can also order them online.
Okay.
There's a company called Uncle Jim's Worm Farm. They will ship you worms. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Adrian.
Hey, so for if someone's doing container gardening or even just, I guess, in a bed too, it sounded like you're saying for something like broccoli or greens, you can sort of harvest what you need, but then the main plant continues growing and producing. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, correct. So, most of the leafy green plants, you're just gonna cut the leaves off and it's gonna regrow. Okay, so any lettuce, Swiss chard, kale, collard greens, bok choy, arugula, those are all, you cut it. You can basically cut it like an inch from the ground and they will regrow from that, from the center.
Oh, wow.
Broccoli, celery, broccoli, you cut the main head off and then it'll continue to produce side shoots, which are basically smaller broccoli heads. You can also eat all the broccoli leaves. Celery, you can cut it to the ground and the stalks will regrow. Other plants don't do that. So cauliflower, you cut the head. You actually will get side shoots. They will take like 4 months to come. Same with cabbage. Yeah, same with cabbage. You can cut the main cabbage head and then about 4 months later, you'll start getting like little cabbage heads, which it's just not worth it, basically. Yeah, so if you have a small space, I would recommend you go towards leafy greens and herbs that you can incorporate into your cooking on a regular basis. If you're doing, obviously when you plant a carrot from seed, you get a carrot and you pull the whole plant out of the ground, like it's not going to come again, so you can definitely grow it in a small garden. You might get more food if you grow something else. At the same time, I would say, like, if you love carrots, grow carrots, or if you just want to have that experience of pulling a carrot out of the ground, it's definitely very magical. So try it out. Don't listen to me that much.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, anyone else? Otherwise, I'm going to go back to Rodolfo. Rodolfo.
Richie, do you sell seed packets?
No, I don't sell seed packets.
Any particular company that you recommend? I mean, that are better than others?
There's a couple I listed in the guide. I like buying from two companies. One is called Johnny's. The other one's called High Mowing. And the third one I ordered from is called Baker Creek. They're all in the guide there. High Mowing and Johnny's, they sell primarily to small scale farmers. So they have very high quality seed. There's actually grades of seed. So when you're buying seed at like Home Depot, you're buying like the lowest grade seed. So a lot of those seeds are not going to come up. They might be different from what you see on the packet. Like you planted one type of kale, but you got a different type of kale. So, and they're the smallest, the most shriveled up seeds. That's what they sell at Home Depot. When you buy from, a company like, this is Botanical Interest, they primarily sell to home gardeners. So home gardeners, like serious home gardeners, you get mid-grade seed. Okay, you get the mid-size, mid-grade seed. When you buy from Johnny's and High Mowing, you pay a little bit extra. Like instead of $2 a packet, you'll pay $5 a packet. but you get the highest grade seed. So I buy the highest grade seed because it's.
How about burpee?
Burpee is also a mid grade, kind of a mid to low grade actually. I don't really buy Burpee. Burpee is like a Home Depot brand.
Oh, I see. Thank you.
Yeah. I wrote it in the guide there, but don't buy seeds at a nursery. Don't buy seeds at the hardware store if you can avoid it. Buy seeds directly from seed companies. So that means buying online now. Because when you buy at a nursery, at a hardware store, I mean, some nurseries I go to, they're keeping their seeds in their greenhouse, which means the seeds are like cooking, for half the year. So I don't want to buy those seeds. Half of them are going to be dead. Home Depot, you're getting like the lowest grade seed, and it could be old, and it's not stored properly. So if you buy directly from the seed company, it comes out of refrigeration when you buy it, and they ship it directly to you, so it's fresh. Other thing I want to say just about this whole seed starting process, if you have a really small garden, it may not be that worth it for you to do this, okay? So it's okay if you just go to the nursery and buy some seedlings. If you only have like one big pot and then you buy a $2 packet of bok choy seed that has 400 seeds of it and you only need 3 seeds, you might as well buy a 6-pack of bok choy at a nursery for $4. It's gonna work out for you. It'll be a lot easier for you. So if you want to do this for the experience and for the knowledge and so you know how to do it, definitely do it that way. But perfectly okay. Even sometimes for me, if I want to just get 1 or 2 of something, I'll just go to a nursery and pick it up for $3. Like it's worth it.
I have a question. Hi, Rishi.
Okay, Valentina, you're my last question. Okay.
Okay, I'll make it quick. I'm not on the topic, sorry, but I really like the plant that's behind you on the table. What is that?
This one?
Yeah. What is that?
This is a bouquet.
No wonder.
There's a bouquet of amaranth and geranium and I don't know what else is in here. Eucalyptus that a friend gave me.
I was wondering how you could get a plant to grow in that little pot, and I go, no, that's impossible. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Happy first anniversary, or second?
Third.
Third? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Time flies. Say hi to Archie. Okay,
Right.
thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone for joining me here today. Next month's class, my mom is going to do Zero Waste Farmer. She told me the topic, but I forgot. Anyways, you'll get it in your email. And I'll send you a link to the guide. If you're watching the recording of this, I'll send you the link to the guide in your email. And if you missed it here today, you'll get it in your email anyways. So thank you all for joining me. Good luck with your gardens. I hope you plant many seeds and most of them grow.
Thanks,
Good night.
Rishi.
Good night. Good night.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.